Hey everybody, welcome back and thanks for watching. This video I am making on the request of Eric6958, I believe, where he was asking if I could do a comparison video between a legitimate bullpup and a AR-15 bullpup chassis conversion kit. So here we go. What we're using here is we're using the MDRX from Desert Tech, and then here I have the Reap Weaponries Bullpup chassis, and I have it paired with the BRN-180 Gen 3. Now with the chassis, we can actually use a pretty wide variety of upper receivers. As long as it goes with a AR-15 lower receiver, we're going to be able to use that. Because what we're doing here is we're just taking an AR-15 lower receiver and the chassis clamps onto it and then converts it into a bullpup lower, and then the AR-15 upper receivers just slap on there. So we could put just this standard AR-15 upper receiver on there and it'll work. The only downside is you have the rear charging handle, which is kind of awkward to use when we are in a bullpup configuration. So with the BRN, it has a non-reciprocating side charging handle on the receiver. So we're able to charge it back here. So it's a little bit more comfortable. You also have the Jackal, which I have ran with this chassis. Forgot where I had my stuff. And that has a forward side charging handle, worked really well. Then you also have the Foxtrot Mike upper receiver that also has a forward charging handle, and that would work really well with this. I've used the Foxtrot Mike with the A3 Tactical bullpup chassis, the Triad. And then we also have the SRU SARB bullpup chassis, which that's the only one I have not tried out yet. And it looks like because of customs and shipping from foreign countries right now, they're not sure what they're going to be doing. So they have a hold on all shipping to the United States at this point. So I probably won't be getting my hands on that one anytime soon, but maybe later on down the line, I will snag that one. The great thing about using the chassis is you can use whatever AR-15 parts you have already. So this, I'm just using the Anderson Manufacturing, rest in peace, lower receiver. And I mean, those go for like 40, they did go for like 40 bucks. And then I just went with a standard mil-spec parts kit, and then included the Franklin Armory binary trigger in there. So this gives you a lot of modularity. You can customize it a lot more, very similar to what you can do with the AR-15. And you're able to just pick from a really wide variety of parts that you can go with, different triggers, different upper receivers. You can change the barrel lengths. You can change the calibers and make adjustments, things like that. In this configuration, I am using the Deadfoot Arms short buffer system. Now, I did this because I actually have this paired up with a 5.7 upper receiver, and we're using that in order to get that to run. But if we're looking at 5.56, 223, 300 blackout, then we wouldn't actually need that if we're running with like this, the BRN or the Foxtrot Mike or the Jackal. We could actually just get a Picatinny rail adapter on here and then run just a flat butt pad on the back. So there's a couple different versions that we can get there. And so you can actually shorten this up a little bit more, but you do need to be careful because there are limits onto how short we can build these rifles. So this gives you a little bit more length. So it needs to be, I think, 26 inches total at least. Okay, so if like this right here, I'm running a 14.5-inch barrel with a pin and welded muzzle device, which brings it to 16 inches. But if I didn't have this buttstock on here, it would actually be shorter than it's allowed to be. Right, so just be aware of that when you are building your AR-15 bullpup conversion. You can build this into a pistol conversion. So if you want to go that route, you can definitely do that. So a lot of options for the bullpup chassis. It is going to be lighter overall, depending on the upper you get. The Jackal is pretty heavy, so that one you're probably going to be similar weight to this. But right now, this is coming in at like 7.3 pounds without the optic and without a magazine. So we're still keeping it relatively light. The BRN is a little bit heavier. The Foxtrot Mike is going to be the lightest that you can do besides the regular AR-15. Okay. Now the ergonomics of here, this is where this starts to lose a little bit of its appeal, because we are running off of that AR-15 lower receiver. So all the mechanics and all the functions are all back here. This is just like an extension, and you have a rod for the trigger that goes back and it engages with your trigger back here. First thing, fire and safety selector. We have one right here, and then you have your regular AR lower receiver fire and safety selector in the back. So for this, I need to run both safeties because I have the binary trigger. Okay, but you can, especially with the A3 Tactical, they actually have a plug that covers that up. So then you can just use the fire and safety selector up here. But the Reap Weaponries keeps that all open. Now, this is where it gets a little bit iffy, I guess, but it's not bad. Okay, your magazine release, you need to get a ambidextrous magazine release. The Reap Weaponries does not come with it, but the A3 Tactical does come with its own ambidextrous release. Now we want that because as we're shooting and manipulating the weapon, we need to be able to eject that magazine. So if we didn't have that, then it would be on this side. So then we'd have to be doing this to do it. Okay, so it'd be a lot of hand switching. So you do want the ambidextrous release. So we're shooting, change that magazine, insert the next one, and then bolt release is in the exact same spot. Well, not the exact same spot, but it's on the lower receiver and it's just further back. So typically it's up here with the regular AR-15, but now it's all the way back here. So if we run this, okay, here's the magazine release, insert the new one, charge it, and then continue shooting. So there's our mag drop. Okay, so not bad, but it is an extra step when we are loading a new magazine. Now, let's move on to the Desert Tech. So this is my preferred bullpup. It is on the heavy side, so it's running about 8.5 pounds, I believe, without the optic. And there's pros and cons to it. So this allows you to actually switch to a higher caliber, so a 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor. So they built the chassis pretty heavy to allow that conversion. So it's one of the very few, I think there's one other platform that allows you to actually bump up to that higher caliber. Okay, so the MDRX is one of them. So it's a little bit heavier. So if you don't want it heavy, you're going to need to go with something like this, or you can go with something like the Caltech RDB. That one's really light. The ergonomics aren't very good on that. I'd say it's worse
Charge
than
it and then continue shooting.
Getting on here, the magazine release is in the back, so you have to kind of push it with your thumb, or you have to, you know, work around it somehow. I have owned the RDB, and I think it's a great rifle too, but it's going to be slower. Then you also have the Springfield Hellion or the VH2 bullpup. That one is pretty light. That one, the trigger isn't very good. And then I think the ergonomics aren't quite as good as this. I haven't actually ran that one. I've held it at a shop before, but I haven't actually used it. And I think the magazine release is in the back as well. I could be wrong. I'll need you guys fact check me. Okay. But with the MDRX, it has a lot of the same ergonomics as the AR-15 and all of the upsides of a bullpup. So We have a side charging handle, non-reciprocating. A magazine release, it's an ambidextrous magazine release, just like an AR-15. Fire and safety selector is right here. Okay, it's a short throw fire and safety selector. Bolt release is right here, so if we were to change out that magazine. Now, the MDRX and some of the other bullpup platforms allow you to have ambidextrous ejection capability. So the RDB, it just shoots straight down, ejects the casing straight down. This one, the version I have for the MDRX is the forward eject version. You can get a side eject version, and then it can be switched over to either side within like 10 seconds with something like this. So like, and then the AUG can't switch out with that. The VH2, I don't think you can switch that from right to left-handed. Yeah, I don't think you can on that one either. Okay, but with the AR conversion kits, you can't switch it out. You can get it where you know, depending on the upper you have, where it ejects to the left or to the right, but it can't be switched out easily. That's the receiver that you buy. So keep that in mind, that if you are a left-handed shooter, you may not be able to do something like this because you're going to have that casing spitting out right at your cheek. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I do know that they sell like some deflectors, and maybe that'll help, but I haven't used any of them, so I don't know how well they actually work. So this one, the ergonomics are just a lot better because we can run it like an AR-15. So I'll do this. So, and then we're ready to rock and roll. So much easier doing reloads and dealing with malfunctions and things like that with the MDRX style bullpup versus going with one of the conversions. And this also kind of depends on, well, like running malfunctions, it's going to depend on the upper that you have. So the side charging ones are going to be easier. If you go with the AR-15 upper with the T-bone charging handle, then that is going to be a little bit more difficult to work out malfunctions. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to decide which one you're going to buy. Now, price point on these, the conversion is going to be a lot cheaper. So this is the MDRX. This was about $2,500, and the Wolverine is similar in price. So you're looking at a couple $1,000 at least. When we're running with this, depending on the upper you get, we should be under $2,000 for the most part. So this, the BRN-180, it was like $1,100, maybe it was closer to $1,000. So $1,000 for the upper. Lower receiver, Anderson Manufacturing. You could get a Palmetto State Armory, get it for like 40 bucks. Then the chassis is $400. So we're still about $1,500 so far. Then depending on what we go with this is another couple hundred. Binary trigger, that's another couple hundred. So this setup, we are looking at about $2,000 for this setup, but you can get it closer to the $1,000 range if we go Foxtrot Mike. The upper receivers for that, I mean, they're about $500, I think. Then the chassis, the lower, so there you're probably looking closer to $1,000 if you go something like that. So you can get it a lot cheaper depending on what you go for. So this just has a lot more customization. It's much more modular than the standard bullpup, but something like this already has pretty much everything that you'd want on it anyway. So, you know, is it worth it to spend that extra money? All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you later.